From Chapter 4, Lighting the Fuse. Although she had spent much of her early life there, Farmville was a place where Barbara Johns never really felt she belonged. The seat of Prince Edward County, Farmville was a trading center for tobacco and lumber, a town that didn't seem to have changed much since Robert E. Lee and Ulysses S. Grant had separately stopped there in April 1865 on their way to end the Civil War at Appomattox Courthouse. In 1951, local blacks were barred from the hotel where the generals had rested, just as they were barred from Farmville's restaurants, its drugstore counters, and its only movie theater, bowling alley, and swimming pool. And, of course, its all-white public schools. The school Barbara Johns attended, Moton High School, featured temporary buildings that were really just tar paper shacks, and classrooms that were usually too stuffy and hot in the fall and spring, and too cold in the winter. For years, the all-white school district had been promising the black community a new school, but somehow it was never built. The blacks, despite their resentment, did not dare complain too loudly. Barbara Johns could not understand such docility. Pretty and bright, she had always been an outspoken child. Family members said she took after her Uncle Vernon, the pastor of the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. The family didn't mean that as much of a compliment, but Barbara, who idolized her uncle, took it as one anyway. Vernon Johns was a hot-tempered crusader for civil rights, who railed at his congregation and other blacks for their complacency in the face of racial and other social injustice. Not much loved by the affluent black members of his church, he was destined to have a powerful influence on his young successor at Dexter Avenue, Martin Luther King, Jr. When Johns visited Farmville, Barbara loved to hear him talk. He was beyond the intellectual scope of everyone around the county, she said. I remember that white men would listen to him speak and shake their heads, not understanding his language. As much as she hero-worshipped her uncle, however, she didn't shy away from disagreeing with him. We'd always be on opposite sides in an argument. I'm afraid we were both very antagonistic. At Moton High School, Barbara Johns participated in the drama club, the chorus, and the student council. Those activities made it possible for her to travel to other black high schools around the state. Many, she couldn't help noticing, were in better shape than Moton. What bothered Johns and her fellow students most about their school were the tar paper shacks, with their leaky roofs and pathetic wood stoves. An occasional motorist driving by the school would stop to ask the students what the shacks were. One man, told they were part of the school, responded, "School? Looks like a poultry farm." In the fall of 1950, Johns decided to take action on her own. She brought 5 other student leaders together for a clandestine student meeting in the bleachers of the school's athletic field. Farmville's black adults, she said, had made no headway in getting a new school. Then, recalled one of the other students at the meeting, she said, our parents ask us to follow them, but in some instances, and I remember her saying this very vividly, a little child shall lead them. She said we could make a move that would broadcast Prince Edward County all over the world. For 6 months, the students planned their strategy. They put it into effect on April 23, 1951. Late that morning, Moton's principal, Boyd Jones, received a phone call from one of the conspirators, advising him that 2 of his students were about to be arrested by police at the Greyhound bus station. Jones left school in a hurry, never suspecting that the summons was a ploy to get him safely away so that a note with Jones' forged signature could be sent to each classroom, announcing an immediate school assembly. After the teachers and the school's 450 students gathered in the auditorium, the curtains on the stage parted and revealed Barbara Johns, not Boyd Jones, standing at the podium. She declared that the meeting was for students only and asked the teachers to leave. When some teachers protested, Johns removed one of her shoes and smacked it on a bench. "I want you out of here," she shouted. At that, all the teachers left, some with student escorts. Then Johns got down to business. The time had come, she said, for dramatic action. Joined by the other student organizers, she called for a student strike and produced hand-lettered picket signs proclaiming, "We want a new school or none at all," and "Down with the tar paper shacks." The students cheered and marched out of the auditorium with Barbara Johns in the vanguard. The strike leaders sent a letter to the NAACP in Richmond that same afternoon. "We hate to impose as we are doing," the letter began, "but under the circumstances we are facing, we have to ask for your help." 3 days later, 2 top civil rights lawyers were on their way to Farmville. By this time, the NAACP had already decided to challenge separate but equal in favor of total desegregation. Although there may have been, as Richard Kluger has written, no less promising place in all Virginia to wage the fight for equal schools, the NAACP lawyers were willing to try. In a shabby basement meeting room of a local church, they told the students and some parents that the NAACP would help them only if they were prepared to go for broke, desegregation or nothing, and then only if the students could demonstrate that they had the support of the adults in the black community. The strikers were stunned but enthusiastic. "It seemed like reaching for the moon," said Barbara Johns.